Are you seeing anything different in the sense of confidence, in the sense of like motivation, like I'm a free agent after this year, whether I stay a Blue Jay or not? Is there something different that you're seeing him? Because when I watch his at bats with runners in scoring position have been elite and pro. And I saw a lot of rollovers last year. I saw a lot of fly balls to left. Now I'm seeing him stay inside the ball. And recently, ball's starting to go out of the ballpark. So is there something like that we're not seeing that like is motivating him?
I think he's, last year, first time ever, I think in Bo's life where he just, didn't perform close to his expectations for himself, and injuries, trying to find his swing, all sorts of stuff going on last year. And it's really kind of him getting back to himself. That sounds so easy, and so funny, but when Bo's taking aggressive swings, he's really good, and he's hit the ball extremely hard all year. You look at from opening day to now, man, he's squaring the ball up. They're starting to go over the fence, like you said, but with runners in scoring position, it's interesting you say that. I mean, the numbers are what they are, obviously, but he's it's almost like he's on the attack a little bit more when he's trying to get runners in, and if he can just have that mindset every single at bat, he's as dangerous as anyone. But in terms of motivating, I think I've known him for about 10 years now through the minor leagues and into the big leagues. He doesn't need anyone other than himself to motivate him. He wants to be great. And I think last year was a total outlier for him. And when you look at the course of his career offensively, so he's kind of back to himself. And, he has a really, really big desire to win. And I think when you look at it, yeah, he's going to be a free agent. He's expressed his thoughts about staying here. That part of it is kind of out of our hands from a business side, but he really, really wants to win. And I think that he's really enjoying doing it with this group.
I was going to hit that. You said he was dealing with other stuff last year. You've known him. This is like your little son, your little brother. Like you coached him when you guys, I mean, double A, you guys were winning championships together. Did you see the looming pressure and talk about, well, you know what, the team might extend Vladdy, not so much Bo? Was there anything that you ever had to talk to him about last year, like deal with what or control what you can control during the season last year because you know him so well?
No, I mean, he gets it. You know what I mean? He understands how the whole thing works. And I think that comes from being around the game forever and kind of going through it himself. So it's the whole talk this offseason and into spring, the season, all about Vlad and, rightfully so after the year he came off of and kind of what he means to this organization. But Bo gets it. I didn't have to talk to him at all. I think last year, we were talking about him kind of just controlling what he can control, really. It was a down year for us, and we had some young kids come up, and I think that was hard for everyone that was here, until kind of the deadline, and then your roster flips a little bit. But he doesn't need, I don't think, much advice or motivation in terms of where he is in his career. He just kind of understands how the business works and just wants to win. I think what he's done really this year, thinking about it, is just putting winning in the forefront. We've asked a lot of him over the years here, in terms of leadership, and you kind of get burst onto the scene with some of these other guys here, and you're kind of just forced into the spotlight. So I think kind of just worrying about him and not worrying about taking care of everyone else. He still does that on his own, quietly or with a little bit of a voice if he needs to. But I think just worrying about what's important, that night to win has really kind of freed him up too.
I know your answer is probably going to be, oh, he's just the same guy. He's just the same old Vlad. When Vlad signed it's his extension, was there a little bit, because Vlad too, like you've been coaching your face off with all these young guys, and you're just riding on their coat. I mean, you're managing
Yeah,
them, but
yeah.
it's like, yeah, you've been riding their coattails. I get it, but hey, Kevin Biggio, he left, but you're not riding his coattails anymore. But anyway, how different is it for Vlad on that day when he signed, when it was finally released? Was there some kind of change in the sense of like relief? Was there like a motivation to say, you know what, I'm the franchise face now?
It was pretty cool. He let me know. I think we were in New York early in the year when it kind of tentatively got agreed to before it was, news broken and all that kind of stuff. And he kind of came in, told me quietly before game, gave him a hug, gave me a hug, told him I was happy for him and his family. The press conference day was cool. He's up there in his pink suit. He's got the family. You get Edward Rogers out there. You don't get Edward out there very often. Yeah, it's different, right? It's $500 million over 14. It's definitely different, and he's ready for that. I think part of the decision to extend a guy is not just what he does on the field, but what he's going to mean for this franchise and what he's going to mean when people think about the Toronto Blue Jays. So he's ready for that. We've had some quiet discussions. It's been cool to have older guys here too. Like Max Scherzer, being through it, Max has kind of been the standard in pitching for a while. We've had some cool conversations, the three of us, about the expectations that come with this contract and just how you're going to be viewed. Not just what you're doing in the batter's box, but how you're being viewed on the bases, how you're being viewed in the media, how you're being viewed on defense. So people forget how young Vlad is. He's 26 years old, and I think that his best years are ahead of him. It sounds kind of crazy, but I think his best years are probably a handful of years ahead of him when he has stuff really, really ironed out. He is the same guy. It is an easy answer. He understands that the expectations and the spotlight are going to be a little bit different. One of the many things I love about Vlad, though, is he just comes to the park every day, smile on his face, and he's ready to roll. So a little bit different, but yeah, token answer. He's basically the same dude.
You brought up Max Scherzer a little bit. 8 batters he's faced over 4.5 innings, or 4 1/3, excuse me. Struck out 8, excuse me, again. When do you see this guy coming back? Is he ready to rock?
I hope, man. It's been such a weird thing with him. I know he's had the thumb issue in the past. It seems like we're kind of at the point where he's going to be back helping us. I think we're taking a lot of stock, not just in his outings, but how he's feeling the days after. So scheduled to throw a pen this weekend here with us, and then if he's feeling up to it, if he's recovering well, yeah, he could be back in our rotation in Cleveland. And if it's one more in Buffalo, great. If it's maybe not exactly on regular rest in Cleveland, if it's a couple more days, okay. But I think we're getting to the point to where we're looking forward to seeing him pretty soon and talk about a guy that's just no nonsense. You know what I mean? I'm still waiting for the first time I have to go take him out of a game, in like the 6th inning or something, and he's gonna rip my head off. I'm still waiting for it, but I'm looking forward to it. He still loves the game. He's in here. He comes into my office about half hour each day, just kind of talking shop about you never know what. So you're always kind of prepared for him, whether it's opposing hitters, defensive positioning, rules, this and that. He's always on. You know what I mean? So to get him back is going to be huge shot in the arm for us. We've been covering some innings with our rotation. Guys have stepped up. Some depth guys and some bullpen guys. So to get him back would be huge, man. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, and looking forward to him wanting to strangle me the first time I take him out.
I love that. Send Kirk out. Send Kirk out for the team for the mound visit.
Yeah, I'm gonna send Pete. Pete's gonna make all the pitching changes with Max out there. I told him just like, hey man, I'm not looking to get some bad press and some mound visits. I've been there, done that. So I'll send Petey out there.
That's the play. I remember Doc. I remember Roy Halladay, Charlie Manuel. Charlie Manuel would be like, "Hey, go talk to him."
Yeah, that's always good, right?
Looks over. Chooch looks over. He goes, "You go talk to him." Nobody's going out to the mound to talk to Roy Halladay. He's pissed. He's spitting, snorting, he's sweating. So yeah, it's the same thing with Max.
It's going to be and spring training, totally different animal. That's all I've had him so far, minus the 3 innings here first weekend. But I'm looking forward to it, man. It's funny. He's like, I'm the easiest guy to manage, man. I always tell you what I got before the game, and if I got 110 that game, great. If I got 85 that game, great. I'll let you know. And we've just seen him be so fiery. So I'm just hopefully just looking forward to him getting back, and he just brings an edge about you too. You know what I mean? It's how it is, Frage or Craftsy, when you're. No matter how old the guy is, you're saying, okay, we're facing Max Scherzer tonight. It's kind of a hard hat day for the opposing team, and you know what you're getting. So I'm glad he's making progress, and hopefully he can be back soon.
This is why you came on the show today, because Max is doing rehab, so he's not there to bother you. Todd was doing a game for the Yankees, and Cole came up into the booth, and I'm sure the
Oh,
dugout
you were
was like,
doing.
oh,
Yeah.
thank God Cole's out of the dugout. I'm sure there's times where you're like, thank God Max is on rehab down in Buffalo. He doesn't need to bother me during the day.
He did one of that with us too. I think we were in Anaheim, and he went up and did it in the booth with Bassett on the mound. They're tight, so I think he went up with Buck and Dan for a couple innings just to kind of critique what Chris was doing in the third and fourth inning. But he is like that. He'll all of a sudden he'll come up, and all of a sudden he's just sitting next to me and Pete for an inning and a half just talking, and it's like, hey, we got man game here, dude. It's like we can catch up after. But he's a beauty, man. He's one of a kind. It's like you see him from afar and you kind of hear stories, but he's he's never off, put it that way.
It's summertime, and if you want to let it all flow out but the hair is thinning, there is a solution for you. And Kratz, it's called Nutrafol. Tell the people what they need to do.
It's easy. You just got to hit up Nutrafol.com and use our code FOUL. And I'll tell you why, because you're going to have thicker hair. That's it. If that's your desire, you want thicker hair, there's no other place to go than Nutrafol.com and use the code FOUL for us.
#1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, they're offering the FT fam $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and you enter the promo code FOUL, F-O-U-L. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair.
All right, my question for you is something we talked about, texted about in the offseason. The whole Roki Sasaki courting ship, it looked like you guys were getting them. I asked you what kind of presentation you guys put together, and your answer was, dude, our player development stuff is next level. All the stuff we have in the stadium is next level. How close did you feel like you guys were? And is it disappointing that you didn't get him? And did you feel like you were maybe a little duped the fact that he still went to the Dodgers and you guys put your best foot forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process. We went out to LA and met with him out at his agency first, and then I think that presentation was pretty cool. We had guys from our pitching department, obviously front office, but a guy that we just hired, Sam Green. He used to kind of work in our front office. He's on our staff now. Put together a presentation with his stuff and kind of how it plays and how we can get it better. It was interesting because he's a young dude and there's still some development that's going to go on. So he was interested in that, not just what are you going to pay me or what are you going to do for me? It was kind of how am I going to get better? So it was interesting to kind of talk through that. And then he came up here probably 10 days later to Toronto with a big group of people that were going to be surrounding him when he did come over here. And we did dinners. We had players here talking to him. We had people zooming in, showed him the entire facility. Like you said, the facilities that we have are next level. It's funny. We had Randall Grichuk in last series from Arizona, who used to be here, and he's walking around here and he's like, where was this when I was here? That's a big draw for players. I think how we can support them with facilities and technology. I mean, the clubhouse, the training room, the weight room, it's like a Four-Seasons spa in here. Sometimes, you almost feel like it's too nice. So that's a draw, and it felt like he was really appreciative of everything we had. And just in talking to, him and some of the guys on his team, you feel like you're in a pretty good spot, kind of between us and the Dodgers, and didn't work out. You know what I mean? It's, you always try to put your best foot forward when you think a player is going to help your organization. He's definitely one of those guys, and I know he's hurt now, but seems to look like he has a really bright future ahead of him. And are you disappointed you miss out on some guys? Yeah, for sure. It happens to everybody, and it's been cool to kind of go. We went through it with Shohei the year before. Not to that extent we did with Sasaki, but it's cool to kind of you get to hear yourself talk about your organization a little bit, and you feel good about it, and you feel good about the process you go through and the presentation you can give and kind of what you can offer a player. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but that thing in the off, it was pretty. There was a lot of planning, a lot of people involved, and I thought we showed really well, and it didn't work out.
What would you do differently? What would you learn from the experience? Because you're going to have to court and woo another player. How would you do it differently?
I'm not sure, man. I mean, it's again, it wasn't me driving it. I was here kind of supporting it, but I've been through it a couple times, and you kind of, do you compare it to what other teams are doing? Sure. I think that when it comes down to free agents, especially, I mean, there's so much more that goes into it other than, yes, money, and what are you going to do for my family? Where do I live in proximity to the city? There's so much stuff that goes into it. Sasaki's case was a little bit different because he was, so young and still, knowing that he wanted to be here in the States when his best years were here, as opposed to coming from Japan. That was the most interesting thing about him was, I want to have a couple years under my belt before I kind of hit my prime and be adjusted to this league. So to do differently, man, I don't know. It seems like, every presentation that I've sat through with players, and it's a very attractive place to come. Again, this is the only spot I know, but it's not quite sure what else you could do. And you feel like you put your best foot forward. Sometimes it's just not a match for the player for a variety of reasons. But I don't know if we could have done anything different. Maybe not have snow on the ground in the winter when guys are coming up here.
I swear, I was just going to
Maybe
say
have
there
it
was
75 and maybe 75 and sunny every day. I don't know.
there were some built-in disadvantages to start. So I feel like the
Yeah.
pitch obviously definitely got you to a place much further than most. But yeah, you can't change the weather. You can't change the location. If he wants a few hours
Exactly.
knocked off the flight, you can't do that stuff.
Right. Right.
All right,
Exactly.
I want to take you to a current event here. So, and it's a two-parter. We had Ryan
Cool.
O'Hearn on the other day, who I'm sure you know well from facing him, and he's
Yeah.
an all-star candidate as a DH. He sent out a personal thank you to Craig Breslow for trading away Rafael Devers and opening up the DH spot. Do you have a similar vibe? Because, hey, I mean, this is a guy who has terrorized the division with his bat for a while, and now you're not going to see him as much. When you see news like that, just genuinely as someone who wants to win games, do you get a little excited?
I mean, they still have a good team. They got a few guys that have hit us well, and they got some young guys that are pretty exciting. But yeah, it kind of caught us off guard. Carlos Feblis, third base coach, he knows, being in Boston for a number of years, he knows Raf and all those guys fairly well. We were a little surprised. Brez did play for me in 2018. I don't know if anyone knows this. He was on the Fisher Cats roster in 2018 in the bullpen for about 4 weeks, and he was commuting back and forth through his house basically every day, and then bumped up to AAA probably about, I think, a month into the season. So maybe I left him with some good vibes and said, yeah, let's get Raf out of the division. I'm not sure, but it was a big trade, and it's kind of that time of year, and I know teams are just trying to make themselves better, but it is nice, I think, when you look over at a division rival and a guy that's really handled you pretty well, and a lot of people in the division, you don't really have to deal with him for as many times as you had thought. So yeah, it's kind of like a couple of years ago, people are asking me, are you hoping Aaron Judge signs with the Giants? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. It's just, I'm not going to lie. So it is a different thing. It's a different look to their lineup, but they're still a pretty damn good team.
Yeah, you're like, everyone to the National League. Go for it. Have a great time out there.
League West, get out there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go West. Second part of the question, what did you think of what happened there? Like, not that you've necessarily come across any examples like that, but how delicate the communication process can be. Because, it's been probably the number one drama saga of the year, I would say, from like a superstar player battling with an organization. There were so many levels. Owner goes to meet with him, all of that. So when you're observing that, can you take anything away from that? Because the only thing, I don't know if you know Raf personally, but he's not Manny Ramirez, for lack of a better term. Like he's like the quiet kid in the corner. Usually he's just smiling and having a good time. And now half the fans think that he's a villain.
Right. It's funny, man. Being in this seat, it's different than what you expect, I think, when you first get into it, right? So I can remember just a couple of years ago where, you think you're in touch with everything and everyone, and you're trying to please everybody, and you could just never lose the the communication with the players. I mean, even if it's just like a brutal conversation, it happens. And whether it's, different ownership in Boston, and it's a high profile organization, obviously, with a really passionate fan base. I don't know. You try to learn from it and just you say, okay, I think every team goes through something like this, and every year, and just sometimes it's not as big or not as public. You know what I mean? There's always kind of like an undercurrent, So what you take from it is you got to be as open and transparent as you possibly can be. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work in the off season. I've learned that from Ross and Mark specifically over the past couple of years, and it's something that I've tried to do more of, was try to be more connected in the off season with the guys and the staff and their families, and certainly the expectations of what we're looking at the next year. And it takes time and it takes reps, man. It's hard, because every person's a little bit different. So what you learn from it is just try to keep the lines of communication open. And again, I'm biased because I've only been here. I feel like we do a really good job of that. I know that there's always room for me and everyone to improve, but it's something you want to avoid. And when you're big name team, big name market franchise, and there's going to be tons of people uncovering things or conversations that may have happened or not happened, it kind of just adds fuel to the fire, which sucks. But it's I know Brez. I don't want to say I know him really well. I know him fairly well, and he's one of the brightest guys, in the game, obviously. And I think he's just trying to do what's right now and for the team long term. So you got to just keep the communication open, I guess, is the best way to put it. And hopefully you don't run into those spots.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.